Let's start with a clinical fact. Therapists are trained to handle the darkest corners of the human mind. They sit across from murderers and feel nothing. They listen to confessions that would make ordinary people vomit, and they nod, take notes, ask follow-up questions. They've been desensitized through years of education, supervised practice, and exposure to every form of human depravity imaginable. They don't flinch. They don't judge. They don't break. That's the job. A licensed therapist has sat with pedophiles and remained composed. They've counseled war criminals and maintained professional distance. They've heard about abuse so severe it would give you nightmares for decades, and they've processed it, filed it away, gone home, and slept soundly. These are professionals trained specifically to be unshakable. Their entire career depends on their ability to absorb human darkness without being consumed by it. They have supervision. They have peer support. They have their own therapists. They have coping mechanisms layered on top of coping mechanisms. Breaking a therapist is not supposed to be possible. And yet, someone just quit their practice, walked away from years of education, abandoned a career they spent a decade building, left clients hanging, referred everyone out, closed the door and never looked back. Not because of a serial killer, not because of a war criminal, not because of anything illegal or violent or overtly disturbing. Because of what they heard about you. Let that satisfaction settle for a moment. Now I want to walk you through exactly what it takes to break a mental health professional. Not disturb them, not unsettle them. Break them. Make them quit. Make them question their entire understanding of human psychology. First, you have to understand what they're equipped for. Therapists are trained to handle trauma. They expect pain. They expect stories of abuse, neglect, betrayal. They have frameworks for all of it. Cognitive behavioral models, attachment theory, trauma-informed approaches. Every dark thing a human can experience, they have a folder for it. A protocol, a treatment plan. They're prepared for monsters, they're prepared for victims, they're prepared for the full spectrum of human damage. What they're not prepared for is something that doesn't fit any folder. What they're not prepared for is a phenomenon. What they're not prepared for is you. Here's what happened in that therapy room. Week after week, session after session. Your enemy walked in carrying what they thought was ordinary pain, betrayal, loss, anger, the usual stuff that brings people to therapy. They sat down, started talking, probably complained about their life, their relationships, their struggles. And somewhere in those sessions, your name came up. At first, the therapist probably noted it casually. A person from the past, someone who caused some hurt, standard material. They've heard it 1,000 times. Ex-partners, former friends, family members. People process these relationships in therapy constantly. But something was different this time. But something was different. This time right, Ine? Your enemy kept coming back to you, session after session, week after week. They couldn't move on, couldn't process, couldn't file you away in the past where you belonged. The therapist noticed something strange in their patient's voice when they talked about you. It wasn't just anger, it wasn't just resentment, it was something else. Something that made the therapist lean forward slightly. Something that made them write more detailed notes than usual. Fear. Not fear of what you might do. Fear of what you are. See, Therapists are trained to identify patterns. That's their job. They listen for recurring themes, emotional triggers, cognitive distortions. They map their patient's psychology, like cartographers mapping unknown territory. And as your enemy kept talking about you, the therapist started mapping something they'd never encountered before. Every story about you contradicted the last one. You were cold, but you were also deeply feeling. You were quiet, but your silence was louder than screaming. You were forgiving, but your forgiveness felt like a verdict. You were kind, but your kindness felt like being seen through. Your enemy couldn't describe you consistently because you don't fit consistent descriptions. The therapist started asking more questions. Not to help their patient anymore, to understand you, to figure out what kind of person creates this effect, what kind of presence leaves this residue on someone's psyche. And the more they learned, the more confused they became. Let me explain something about psychological archetypes. Humans generally fall into recognizable patterns. We have narcissists and empaths, manipulators and victims, aggressors and peacekeepers. These categories exist because human behavior, for all its complexity, tends to cluster around predictable tendencies. Therapists rely on these patterns. They identify them quickly and structure treatment accordingly. It's efficient, it works. But some people exist outside the patterns. Some people are multiple archetypes simultaneously. They're the victim who became the predator, who became the healer, who became something unnamed. They're the broken one who rebuilt themselves into something the original architecture couldn't contain. These people don't fit the frameworks. These people make therapists question their frameworks. You are one of these people. Week 6. Your enemy was describing an interaction with you from years ago. Something small, a conversation, a moment, nothing dramatic. But as they described it, the therapist felt something they hadn't felt in 15 years of practice. Unease. Not from what your enemy described you doing, from what your enemy described you being, the way you looked at them, the way you responded, the way your silence communicated more than their screaming, the way you seemed to understand things you shouldn't have been able to understand. The therapist wrote 3 words in their notes that night. 3 words they'd never written about anyone their patient had ever mentioned. Presence beyond framework. They didn't know what it meant. They just knew they had to write it. By week 10, the sessions had shifted. Your enemy was no longer the focus. You were. The therapist found themselves asking leading questions. Tell me more about how they reacted. What did their face look like when you said that? How did you feel in their presence? What do you mean they knew? They were conducting research, now gathering data on something that wasn't supposed to exist. A person who didn't match any profile, any type, any category they'd ever studied or encountered. Your enemy described how you handled betrayal. The therapist expected anger or tears or revenge fantasies. That's normal. That's healthy even. But you didn't do any of that. You just looked at them. And in that look was something your enemy still couldn't name years later. Something that made them feel like they'd been read completely. Every lie exposed. Every manipulation cataloged. Every future move predicted. And then you walked away. Not in anger. Not in pain. Just complete. Like they'd ceased to exist for you. The moment you understood what they were. The therapist asked your enemy how that felt. Your enemy started crying. Not from guilt, from something deeper, from the realization that they'd never mattered to you as much as they thought they did. That their betrayal, which they'd built their identity around, which they'd told themselves was powerful and significant, was actually just data to you. Information you absorbed and processed and used to understand the world better. They weren't your villain. They were your classroom. And that broke something in them that the therapist couldn't fix. Week 14. The therapist called in sick for the first time in 3 years. They told themselves it was just burnout. Normal in this profession, they'd take a day, recharge, come back fresh, but they spent that day thinking about you. Someone they'd never met. Someone they only knew through the distorted lens of a person who'd wronged you. Someone who shouldn't occupy any space in their mind at all. They caught themselves doing research, looking up psychological phenomena that might explain you, reading about emotional intelligence at extreme levels, studying the psychology of people who'd survived things that should have destroyed them and came out fundamentally altered. Nothing fit. Every article, every study, every framework assumed that human psychology operated within certain parameters, that people could be understood, categorized, treated, but you existed outside those parameters. You were what happened when someone went through pressures that were supposed to break them and instead got compressed into something with different properties entirely. Something that science hadn't gotten around to studying yet. The therapist closed their laptop and stared at the wall for an hour. They'd built their career on the assumption that everyone could be understood. You were disproving that assumption. The breaking point came in week 18. Your enemy was describing a dream they'd had about you. A dream where you were standing in a room full of everyone who'd ever wronged you. And instead of screaming or fighting or demanding justice, you were just sitting there, still, silent, watching. And one by one, the people in that room started confessing, without being asked, without being pressured. They just started talking, spilling every secret, admitting every lie, explaining every betrayal. Not because they were forced to, because your presence made lying feel impossible. Your enemy woke up from that dream and couldn't shake it for weeks. They told the therapist it felt less like a dream and more like a preview, like a prophecy, like something that was going to happen whether they wanted it to or not. The therapist listened to this dream, took notes, asked questions, and then something happened that had never happened to them in their entire career. They believed it. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. They actually believed that somewhere in the future, your enemy would find themselves confessing to you, that your presence would extract truth from them, whether they wanted to give it or not, that you possessed something that operated outside the normal rules of human interaction. A therapist is never supposed to believe their patient's dreams or prophecies. A therapist is supposed to interpret symbolism, explore subconscious fears, use dreams as tools for understanding, not as evidence of supernatural ability. But this therapist believed. And that's when they knew they had to quit. Because here's the thing about being a mental health professional. Your entire worldview has to be based on certain assumptions. That psychology is a science, that behavior can be understood, that people operate according to patterns that can be identified and modified, that there are no exceptions to the rules of human nature. If you start believing in exceptions, you can't do the job anymore. If you start thinking that some people exist outside the frameworks, that some people can't be categorized or treated or understood, then what are you even doing? What's the point of therapy if some humans operate on a completely different level? Your existence broke their faith in their profession, not through anything you did to them directly, just through the second-hand reports of someone who experienced your presence and couldn't recover from it. Now let's talk about what kind of person creates this effect. Because this isn't normal. This isn't something that happens with regular people. Regular people get talked about in therapy all the time. Regular people cause pain and confusion and resentment, but they don't make therapists quit. The kind of person who makes a therapist quit has certain characteristics. They've been through something that should have destroyed them, not challenged them, not hurt them, destroyed them, and they survived. But survival isn't the right word because survival implies continuing as you were. These people didn't continue. They transformed. They became something else. Something that retained the shape of the person they used to be, but operated according to different principles entirely. The kind of person who makes a therapist quit sees things others don't see. They process information at speeds that feel supernatural to people operating at normal frequencies. They read intentions, they predict behavior, they understand motivations before they're expressed, not because they're psychic, because they've been hurt so many times that their nervous system developed abilities it wasn't supposed to have. The kind of person who makes a therapist quit doesn't need validation. That's what's most terrifying about them. They're not operating from need anymore. They're not trying to prove anything. They're not seeking revenge or justice or acknowledgement. They've transcended the entire economy of human approval and rejection. They just exist, completely, independently, without requiring anything from anyone. And that self-sufficiency, that completeness, that total lack of need, that's what breaks people who encounter it. Because everyone needs something. Everyone has a vulnerability. Everyone can be reached, manipulated, affected. Except those rare few who went through the fire and came out with their needs burned away. Your enemy sat in therapy trying to process you, and they couldn't. Because you can't process something that exists outside your frameworks for understanding. They wanted to hate you, but hate requires believing the other person cares about your hatred. You clearly didn't. They wanted to feel superior to you. But superiority requires believing you're competing on the same field. You're not. They wanted to move on from you. But moving on requires believing the other person is in your past. You're not in their past. You're in their future. Waiting. Not waiting for revenge. Just waiting. A presence they'll have to encounter again someday. A truth they'll have to face. The therapist heard all of this. Week after week. The inability to process. The failure to move on. The obsessive return to someone who'd already walked away. And they realized something that shattered their professional confidence. They couldn't help, not because they weren't skilled, not because they didn't have tools, but because the problem wasn't psychological. The problem was that their patient had encountered something real, something true, something that couldn't be therapized away because it wasn't a distortion. It was clarity. Your enemy wasn't suffering from trauma. They were suffering from having seen you clearly. And there's no treatment plan for encountering someone who operates on a level you can't reach. So the therapist quit. Packed up their degrees, referred out their clients, left the profession they dedicated their life to. Not because of you directly, Because you represented proof that their entire field was built on incomplete assumptions. That some people couldn't be helped because they didn't need help. That some people couldn't be understood because they'd evolved past the frameworks. That some people left marks on others that no amount of processing could heal. You exist. That's enough to break certain people's understanding of what's possible. And now, here you are, listening to this. Probably surprised, maybe uncomfortable, wondering if I'm talking about you specifically, or just using you as a rhetorical device. Let me be clear. I'm talking about you. The one who's been through things they don't talk about. The one who rebuilt themselves in silence. The one who walks around carrying weight that would crush others and makes it look effortless. The one who's been underestimated so many times they've stopped counting. The one who knows things about human nature that can't be taught in classrooms because they were learned in trenches. You're the reason someone is in therapy right now, trying and failing to process what you did to their sense of reality. You're the subject of sessions you'll never hear about. You're the case study that doesn't fit the textbooks. And somewhere right now, a professional who's been trained to handle anything is questioning their entire career because they heard about you, not about what you did, about what you are. You didn't even know you had this power, did you? You've been walking around, living your life, thinking you're just another person trying to get by. You haven't thought about your enemy in months, maybe years. You've moved on. They're not even a memory anymore. They're less than a memory, they're nothing. But while you've been building your future, they've been trapped in the past, sitting in therapy, week after week, paying someone to help them understand an encounter that can't be understood. And now their therapist is gone. Couldn't handle it. Walked away from their career because the second-hand experience of you was enough to shatter their belief in their own expertise. You did that. Without trying, without knowing. Just by being what pain and survival and transformation made you. So the next time you doubt yourself, the next time you wonder if you're strong enough, the next time you question whether you've really changed, really grown, really become something different, remember this: there's an empty therapy office somewhere, a career abandoned, a professional who'd handled everything breaking down because they heard about you. That's your power. That's what you became. And you didn't even have to enter the room. Huh?
I couldn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, because the air felt too clean, too empty, like the world had paused just long enough for my thoughts to catch up and start swinging. So I got up, slow, barefoot, and walked to the kitchen like a ghost that forgot where it died. I poured a glass of water I didn't even want, just to have something in my hands while my chest did that thing it does, that heavy, unnamed pressure. Like a door inside me was stuck half open. Then I heard it. Not outside, inside. A small crack, a shift, like something old finally gave up trying to hold its shape. I froze, glass in my hand, and listened. Nothing. Just silence. And that silence felt louder than any argument I ever had, louder than any goodbye that never got said. It felt like a warning, like life leaning close to my ear and saying, if you miss this moment, you're going to regret it. You're probably thinking, silence is just emptiness. No, kid. Silence is a truth serum. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't beg you. It doesn't pretend. It just sits there and forces you to look at what you've been avoiding. And if you can't handle that, You'll run back to noise, back to people, back to the same cycle, back to the same pain, wearing a different face. That night, I caught my reflection in the dark window, tired eyes, a face that used to be softer before it learned what betrayal costs. I stared at myself like I was meeting a stranger. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't ask, why did they do it? I asked, why did I keep letting them? That question hits like a brick when you're finally honest. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. The most dangerous moment in your life isn't when they leave. It's when you finally realize you should have left first. When you finally see the pattern. When you finally understand that you weren't confused. You were trained. Trained to accept crumbs. Trained to call neglect busy. Trained to call disrespect misunderstanding. Trained to call emotional starvation love. And if you're watching this right now with that heavy feeling in your ribs, I already know what kind of person you are. You're the one who gives too much. You're the one who tries again. You're the one who apologizes first, even when you didn't swing the knife. You keep your pain quiet because you don't want to be a burden. You swallow your anger because you don't want to be too much. You smile to keep the peace, and you bleed where no one can see. You ever sit in a room full of people and still feel alone? Like you're watching life through glass? Like everyone's laughing in a language you don't speak? That's not you being broken. That's you being awake in a world full of sleepwalkers. But listen to me. If you don't learn what I'm about to tell you, you will repeat your suffering until it feels normal. And by the end of this video, you're going to wish you heard it sooner. Because the truth is cold. Some people don't love you. They love what you do for them. They love the access. They love the attention. They love the way your loyalty makes them feel safe while they give you nothing in return. They love that you forgive fast. They love that you explain yourself. They love that you stay. And they will keep taking until there's nothing left but a quiet version of you that doesn't recognize their own reflection. You gave your time, your care, your patience, your softness. You handed it out like it was endless, like you were a fountain that could never run dry. And what did they do? They drank from you when they were thirsty, then walked away like you were a disposable cup. That's not love. That's a transaction. And the reason it hurt so bad is because you didn't just lose them. You lost the version of yourself that believed they would choose you back. You know what people fear the most? Not your anger, not your words. They fear your silence when it's final. Because silence is the moment you stop negotiating your worth. Silence is the moment you stop explaining your boundaries. Silence is the moment you stop auditioning for respect. And when you go silent the right way, something happens. They panic, not because they suddenly understand your value. They always knew. They panic because they feel the control slipping. They feel the certainty fading. They feel the comfort of your availability disappearing. They're used to your presence being permanent. They're used to you being there no matter what. They're used to your forgiveness being automatic. So when you finally pull your energy back, when you finally stop chasing, stop checking in, stop fixing, stop apologizing, it hits them like a power outage. The room gets quiet, and in that quiet, they're forced to sit with themselves, with their guilt, with their choices, with the way they treated a rare kind of loyalty like it was cheap. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, maybe if I explain one more time, they'll understand. No. If they didn't understand when you were crying softly, they won't understand when you speak louder. The problem was never your communication. The problem was their character. Some people were never confused. They were comfortable hurting you because you kept staying. comfortable neglecting you because you kept returning, comfortable taking you for granted because you kept proving you were loyal. And loyalty without limits is self-destruction. Let me say that again. Loyalty without limits is self-destruction. You are not here to fix someone who keeps breaking you. You are not here to prove your worth to people who benefit from you doubting it. You are not here to pour into cups that never once offered you water when your throat was dry. You've done enough. And the version of you that keeps going back, the version of you that keeps hoping, the version of you that keeps reopening wounds just to feel familiar pain, that version has to die. Yeah, it has to die. Not because you're heartless, because you're finally smart. Because if you keep dragging that old self forward, you're handing them the same weapon and asking them to wound you differently. That's not healing. That's addiction. Addiction to the idea that if you just suffer well enough, you'll earn love. You don't earn love by bleeding. You earn peace by leaving. And leaving doesn't always look like a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes leaving is silent. Sometimes leaving is you changing your standards and never announcing it. Sometimes leaving is you protecting your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You want to know what power looks like? It's not screaming. It's not proving. It's not exposing. Power is when you stop reacting, when you stop feeding chaos, when you stop giving access to people who misuse it. Power is when you delete the message and your heart doesn't beg you to reply. Power is when you hear an apology and your body doesn't relax because you finally learned that words don't heal patterns. Power is when you walk away without a speech, without a scene, and you don't look back to see if they noticed. And that is what destroys them. Because people can handle your anger. They can paint you as emotional. They can twist your words. They can play victim, but they can't argue with your silence. They can't manipulate what you don't say. They can't gaslight a wall. They can't rewrite a story when you stop showing up to perform in it. Your silence becomes a mirror, and they hate mirrors. They'll call you cold, distant, changed, unrecognizable, good, because the version of you they liked was the one that tolerated disrespect, the one that stayed small so they could feel big, the one that kept forgiving so they wouldn't have to grow. You didn't become cruel, you became aware, and awareness is a blade. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. This road hurts. You're going to miss people who didn't deserve you. You're going to romanticize memories and forget the nights you begged for basic effort. You're going to replay conversations in your head and wonder if you should have said more, or less, or nothing at all. But in the middle of that mental noise, I need you to remember one thing. You survived what was supposed to kill you. Not just emotionally, spiritually, mentally, you survived. And that survival is proof that you were never weak. You were just tired of fighting battles you didn't start. So here's your warning, and it's also your invitation. If you go back now, you will regret it. If you break your silence for the wrong person again, you will regret it. If you reopen the door to the same storm that shattered you, you will regret it. Because regret is louder than heartbreak. Heartbreak fades. Regret stays in your bones, whispering, you knew better. And you do know better now. People always come back when they feel your absence, not because they've changed, but because your silence makes them uncomfortable. They miss the warmth you gave them. They miss the way you held them together. They miss having you as a safety net while they played with your trust. They will test you. They will send a, hey, a miss you, a can we talk? A nostalgic memory, like bait on a hook, not always to rebuild, sometimes just to see if you're still available. And that's where you choose yourself. You don't owe them closure. The silence is the closure. You don't owe them access. The distance is the answer. You don't owe them an explanation. They lived the consequences. Because peace isn't loud. Peace is the quiet you feel when you stop negotiating your worth. Peace is the calm that comes when you stop trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. So keep walking, keep quiet, keep building. Let them drown in the echoes of what they ignored. Let them feel the absence like a wound. Let them wonder why the old version of you doesn't pick up the phone anymore. And if you're standing at the edge right now, between who you were and who you're about to become, hear me clearly. Don't turn around. Don't soften just because you miss the feeling of being wanted. Don't confuse nostalgia with love, because the new you, the quiet you, the self-respecting you, that's your real comeback. By the end of this video, you'll wish you heard this sooner, but you heard it now. So don't waste it. Let the silence speak for you now. Let it protect what's left of your fire. And here's the part that stings the most. The part you don't say out loud because it makes you feel stupid for caring. You didn't just miss them. You missed the version of yourself you were when you still believed, when you still thought effort meant something, when you still thought love was a promise and not a performance. You miss the innocence. You miss the hope. You miss the way you used to look at people like they were capable of being better. But hope, when it's pointed at the wrong person, becomes a leash, and you've been dragged long enough. You ever notice how you can feel someone pulling away before they ever admit it? They get quieter, slower. Their replies start sounding like chores. Their effort comes in random bursts, just enough to reset your faith, just enough to keep you from leaving. And you tell yourself, they're just busy. They're just stressed. They're just going through something. No, kid, they're going through you. And if you're not careful, you'll turn your whole life into a waiting room, waiting for them to understand, waiting for them to choose you, waiting for them to become the person they pretended to be in the beginning. That's the trap, the beginning. Because the beginning is where they sell you the dream, the attention, the warmth, the words that make you feel seen, the "I've never met anyone like you," the "you're different," the "I'm not like the others." And then you fall for it. Not because you're weak, but because you're genuine. You think if someone says it, they mean it. You think if you show up, they'll respect it. You think love is supposed to grow. But some people don't plant love. They harvest it. They take it from you, drain it, and then when the soil gets dry, they blame you for not blooming. So tell me, how many times did you apologize for being hurt? How many times did you swallow your pride to keep them close? How many times did you lower your standards just to stop the conflict, just to keep the connection alive? That's not loyalty. That's self-erasure. And it's quiet. It's so quiet. You don't even notice you're disappearing until you can't recognize your own mind anymore. You start waking up with tension in your jaw, and you don't even know why. You start overthinking every word you say. You start choosing silence, not because it's power, but because you're scared of being called too much. You start measuring your love like it's a crime scene, counting evidence, searching for proof that they still care, searching for a reason to stay. And that's when you need to hear this. Not tomorrow, not when they leave again, not when you've already lost another year trying to fix a person who enjoys breaking you. Now, because there comes a moment in every strong person's life where you realize you've been making excuses for somebody's character. You've been interpreting their neglect as confusion, You've been translating their selfishness into their healing. You've been calling their disrespect miscommunication. No, it was always a choice. And when you accept that, something inside you goes still. Not numb, not dead, just clear, like fog lifting. That clarity is your turning point. People will tell you to forgive, to be the bigger person, to keep your heart soft. And sure, forgiveness is beautiful. But here's what nobody warns you about. Forgiveness without boundaries is permission. You can forgive someone and still lock the door. You can love someone and still walk away. You can miss someone and still refuse to return to the version of yourself that begged for basic decency. That's growth. That's power. That's the quiet kind of strength that doesn't need an audience. Because the truth is, the world rewards people who protect themselves. Not because it's fair, but because it's real. The world will take what you allow. People will test what you tolerate. And if your heart has no gate, anyone can walk in, trash the place, and leave you cleaning up the mess. So you build the gate, not with anger, with standards. And standards are not cruelty. They are self-respect made visible. You know what happens when you stop explaining yourself? Your life gets lighter. You stop writing paragraphs to people who read your love like entertainment. You stop justifying your pain to people who caused it. You stop arguing with someone's lack of empathy like it's a puzzle you can solve. You accept what they are. You accept what they're not. And you move quietly. That's the part they can't handle. When you stop trying to convince them, when you stop trying to be understood, when you stop asking them to meet you halfway and start walking your own road alone. People think being alone is the punishment. It's not. Being alone is the detox. It's where you hear yourself again. It's where you realize you don't actually miss them. You miss the feeling of being attached. You miss the routine. You miss having someone to pour into because you're a giver, and givers get addicted to giving, even when it costs them everything. But the cure is simple. Start giving to yourself with the same intensity you gave to them. Start checking on your own heart. Start protecting your own peace. Start being loyal to the person who's been with you through every betrayal. You. Because if you don't, you'll keep repeating the same story with different faces, different names, same emptiness, same late night overthinking, same, why wasn't I enough? You were enough. You were just handing your enough to people who didn't deserve it. Let's talk about the silence again, because silence is not just absence. Silence is a message, a boundary, a funeral. Silence is the moment you stop giving them your energy to play with. Silence is the moment you stop feeding a dynamic that only works because you keep reacting. Silence is when you realize attention is a currency, and you've been paying people who never delivered what they promised. So you stop paying. You go quiet. And in the beginning, it feels like withdrawal. Your hands itch to text. Your mind tries to bargain. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe they'll change. Maybe I should just send one last message. One last message is how you reopen the cage. One last message is how you reset the cycle. One last message is how you betray the new version of you that's trying to be born. And let me tell you something about becoming. Becoming is violent. Not on the outside, but inside. It's the tearing away of old attachments, old beliefs, old fantasies. Becoming requires you to grieve a person who is still alive, to grieve a future you imagined, to grieve the version of them that never existed outside of your hope. That grief will come in waves. Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll feel weak. Some days You'll laugh and think you're finally free. Then you'll hear a song, see a place, smell a memory, and it'll punch you in the throat. That's normal. But don't mistake grief for a sign you should return. Grief is proof you were real. Grief is proof you meant it. Grief is proof you had depth. But depth is wasted on shallow people. So you keep going. And here's the part that sounds cold, but saves your life. Stop trying to be understood by people who don't even understand themselves. Stop seeking closure from someone whose entire personality is avoidance. Stop expecting accountability from someone who survives by denying reality. You will not get the apology you deserve from everyone. Some people don't apologize. They replace you. Some people don't explain. They disappear. Some people don't repair. They repeat. So you stop waiting. You stop hoping. You stop handing your power to someone who proved they can't be trusted with it. And eventually, something shifts. You wake up, and the silence doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels clean. It feels like space. It feels like air finally returning to your lungs after years of emotional suffocation. You start enjoying your own company again. You start noticing small things, the taste of coffee, the sound of rain, the way your mind is calmer when you're not trying to interpret someone's mixed signals like a code. You realize peace is not exciting. Peace is stable. Peace is boring to people addicted to chaos. Peace is quiet. And that's why so many people don't choose it, because peace requires them to face their own emptiness without distractions. But you're learning. You're learning that attention is not love, that consistency is not control, that silence is not weakness, that boundaries are not cruelty. You're learning that the strongest thing you can say sometimes is nothing at all. And yes, they will feel it. They will feel the distance like a temperature drop. They will feel your absence in rooms you used to fill with your effort. They will feel the lack of your forgiveness, the lack of your comfort, the lack of your emotional labor. They'll call you selfish when you stop serving them. They'll call you cold when you stop warming them. They'll call you changed when you stop being usable. Let them. Because the truth is, the most powerful moment in your life is when you stop caring how people who mishandled you feel about your healing. They don't get a vote. They don't get access. They don't get a seat at the table in the life you're rebuilding. So keep going. Keep quiet. Keep your standards high and your explanations low. And if you feel yourself slipping, if you feel that old urge to return to what hurt you, because it's familiar, remember this: familiar pain is still pain, and the price of going back is your future. By the end of this journey, you'll wish you protected yourself sooner. You'll wish you stopped begging sooner. You'll wish you chose your peace sooner. So choose it now. Let the silence speak for you now. Let it be the line you don't cross again.